So today I just want to talk about my experiences of my dystonia and how it's got me to standing here today and going to medical school. So I'm going to cover those three sections. I'm going to talk a little bit about my dystonia, a little about the DBS, the deep brain stimulation, which I had a few years ago, and then about my experiences of being a dystonia patient at medical school, which has some interesting challenges, which I'll come on to later. So when I was about 3.5 years old, I had my arm behind my back like this, and I was a happy little 4-year-old running around with an arm just stuck, and it wasn't painful, and my parents took me to the emergency department, and there was a junior doctor there who looked at the x-ray and said, "This child has a broken arm." And for years we kind of laughed about this, thinking, you know, that was a bit of a silly diagnosis. But now I'm actually going to be a junior doctor soon, and I'm thinking, oh, that's a bit scary, because I don't want to be that junior doctor in the future. So it's made me change my tune a little bit. I was very fortunate to be diagnosed by Jean-Pierre Lin when I was little, and throughout my childhood my dystonia didn't affect me that much because I was a little girl and I had a bit of a wonky or a bad arm, and I was actually okay. But then in my early teenage years, my dystonia started to affect me a little bit more. Not only because my symptoms spread and changed, it spread to my left arm and my right leg and my voice and my face. The way that it started to kind of impact my life changed. So other friends that I had were able to grow up and be a little bit more independent, and I was a bit withdrawn, a little bit anxious, and I couldn't do things that I wanted to do. So putting in my contact lenses, tying up my hair, and this really started to affect me. So the DBS team at the Evelina Hospital, they offered me the deep brain stimulation when I was about 13, 14. And I thought, oh no, that's far too scary. I can't have that because my dystonia isn't actually affecting me that much. And then as I got a bit older, it started to really affect who I was as a person. I became quite anxious, quite withdrawn, quite just nervous about going to university and things like that. So I was re-offered the DBS when I was 17, and after lots of angsting and thinking, I had the DBS on the 23rd of February, 8 years ago in 2010, and it was a very scary decision to make and a very scary thing to have done. But equally, I look back and I think, oh my goodness, I'm so lucky to have had such positive effects from the deep brain stimulation, and ever so grateful for that treatment, because the DBS has allowed me to go back to the old Amybel, the kind of happy Amybel that I was when I was younger. And the DBS was quite amazing in its effect, and I could start to put on makeup and tie up my hair and sit still. It was really nice to just sit and watch TV, because that, for me, that was a big thing about having the DBS, was I could cope with not being able to do things to some extent. But when the dystonia started to affect me doing nothing, so just hanging out with my friends and watching theatres, and I was kind of constantly moving and twitching, that was when I thought, oh, I need to really, really consider having this procedure. And I think it's really easy to look back 8 years ago, and because I've had it, kind of make it less significant and go, oh yeah, I've had DBS and it was great and that's done. But I think it's really important, and I really hope to try and remember how much what a big deal it was and how kind of scary it is for patients considering having it done. And I really hope to try and remember that. So I had the DBS and my symptoms reduced. But it was interesting because it actually took quite a long time for my kind of anxiety and apprehension to go. So even though my symptoms had gone, I was still a little bit nervous about going to university and things like that. So I went to Warwick University and I did Biomedical Science, which I really, really enjoyed. And the talk yesterday I really, really enjoyed because, as was said yesterday, the DBS works at the end of the problem, where the kind of understanding the kind of pathophysiology behind the disorder is really important, really interesting. So, as I say to lots of people, the DBS is such a great treatment, such a fantastic treatment, as you can probably see, but at the same time, it's not a cure. And I think understanding the root behind dystonia is really, really important and really interesting. So that's my kind of little bit on the deep brain stimulation, and I can talk about it for hours. If you want any questions or anything, do just come up and ask me or ask at the end, because, you know, I had a very positive experience, which I'm really, really grateful and lucky. But at the same time, I learned a lot from having that done, and I learned a lot about clinical medicine as a patient, and I really hope to use that in the future, hopefully when I'm a clinician. So being at medical school with dystonia is quite interesting, because having had that DBS decision and being a patient, it's quite easy sometimes to relate to patients, and it's always a difficult one as to whether to tell patients that I know what they're going through and whether or not to tell them about my experiences to try and help them. And I think it's very situational. I think it's very important to know when to not mention it and know when it's inappropriate to talk about, and then other times to go, actually, I know, I understand what you're going through, and talk to them about it. And what I've learned is that it's situational, and I hope that I have quite a good judgment as to whether to bring it up to patients or not. And equally with the people that are teaching me and my colleagues, it's always interesting to whether to tell them, because obviously my dystonia has massively reduced in the DBS, and so I'm always like, oh, do I bring this up? Do I tell them? Because I struggle a lot with small motor function, so I've stuck more needles in patients than anyone else to try and practice, because I was nervous about practicing putting in cannulas and intubating people and all the clinical skills. I've kind of overcompensated because I was so nervous about practicing. And there was one funny story where I was in an operating theatre and I was watching an operation, and the surgeon said, "Can you hold this like this and hold it as still as you can?" And I'm sure lots of you know, if you say to someone with dystonia, "Stay still," it's the worst thing to say. So there I was holding this piece of equipment as still as I could for this important operation, and my arm went bad, and I was watching the clock on the wall thinking, "Come on, you can hold your arm." And I couldn't do it. I was watching the time go by thinking, you can do it, you've had the DBS. but I couldn't, so I had to say to the surgeon, look, I'm really sorry, I can't hold it anymore. And obviously everyone was fine, and that was fine, but it was a little kind of reminder that maybe I should tell people a little bit more than I do. And equally with the DBS, it does, I don't want to oversell it, but neither do I want to undersell it, because it has been fantastic in helping my symptoms, but equally it is a difficult decision to make, because you have a scar and you have a battery and wires and electrodes, and that did really, really kind of grate on me and annoy me, especially when, ironically, I had such good effects from the DBS. It kind of annoyed me a little bit more that I had a box and a scar, because I kind of forgot how much my dystonia affects me. And this happened for a while until I went to Brazil. And I was in Brazil visiting my brother, and I was with my mum, and my DBS turned off, and I didn't know that it had turned off, and I didn't have my on button, so I had my charger, but I was eating my dinner, and my arm suddenly went like this, and I thought, oh, this hasn't happened in 7 years, so I carried on eating, and then a few hours later, my arm started coming back, and I couldn't speak. And I thought, oh, something's happened. So I flew back to the UK. Luckily, we were due to come home anyway. And my arm was moving so much. And I ran upstairs to my room and found the on switch. And I turned it on. And then instantly, my arm, having gone from this, went to this, to that, in a space of about 2 minutes. So I did feel like a light bulb. Someone had just suddenly turned me on, because that sudden effect from relieving my symptoms was so apparent. And since that experience, it was a nice wake-up call to say, actually, this DBS and this mask is working really, really well, because I wouldn't be at medical school if I didn't have this thing in my head. So since Brazil, I haven't moaned about the scar. I don't mind about the battery, because I think it's actually doing a really, really good job at looking after me. So I won't forget to take my on button when I go on holiday. But equally with the DBS, I've spoken with other people about it, and we all have a similar relationship with magnets. So when you have DBS, they say to avoid magnetic fields and large magnets. And I've taken this a little bit to heart and taken this very literally. So I have a kind of irrational fear of magnets and magnetic fields. So going to the airport is quite a stressful experience, because I'm not allowed through the scanner, which is fine, but I hate even going near the scanner and things like that. But I think that's quite interesting, because I've spoken with other people with the DBS, and they don't like magnets either. So yeah, I hope that I've covered today about my dystonia, my DBS experience, and being a medical student with dystonia. And I start working in August, so hopefully being a junior doctor will be as fun as being a medical student. So thank you so much, Dystonia Europe, and happy birthday. Thank you very much.